Welcome to Garden Party, John.
Thank you. Welcome to our little slice of the world.
It is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Every time I come here, I'm just completely blown away.
Thanks.
You've done a beautiful job. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of interesting topics. Landscaping from scratch. We'll also be talking about the plants that you've chosen and the flowers that you've chosen, and also talking about care for those plants.
Mm-hmm.
So please join us. We'll be right back. We're here again with a beautiful landscape behind us and your home, and you've graciously brought some wine to the table.
Yeah, those are wonderful gifts from my friend Dave Short, who is a big supporter of the Clemente Museum down in the Strip District. Oh. It's an amazing place, of course, for the great Roberto Clemente. Mm-hmm. And a big part of the museum is a winery that our buddy Dwayne Reeder started many years ago, and he's also the proprietor of the museum. And this wine is from Engine House 25, which is that was the number of the Pittsburgh firehouse.
Okay.
Even though on this bottle of white, we see the number 21, of course, for Roberto Clemente.
Okay.
So Dave Short gave Michelle and I a case of this incredible wine.
What?
Oh, yeah. What a wonderful gift.
What, was it a Christmas gift?
No, he was here for Corbriwood stock.
Okay.
And he's such a gracious, those that know Dave around town, he's such a generous man and just an all-around great dude. So he gave us this gift. He brought us a bunch of white, and that's Cabernet, which we have partially opened because I thought we would try that today.
Yeah.
Engine House 25 wine, located
stuff.
at the Clemente Museum.
Should I pour?
Absolutely. It's great stuff.
This is my job. Oh, let me pour yours first,
you got it.
Sir.
And like I said, Dwayne Reeder, who's a famous photographer, and also, of course, the proprietor and the leader of the Clemente Museum, and he makes this great wine, and he's just an all-around super-duper talented guy. So here's to you.
Cheers. Oh, that smells good.
It is good. It is very, very good. Michelle and I have been enjoying this. It's been about 10 days or so since Corby Woodstock, and this has been a staple in our home.
That's delicious.
Yeah. So, like I said, we got white and we got red Cabernet.
It's got a little smoky flavor to it.
I'm not a wine expert, but I know that it's good stuff.
Yeah, that is delicious.
Yep.
Let me
So
cork
thank
this
you,
back
Dave,
up.
and thank you, Dwayne.
And we also have some great musical guests that we're going to feature today.
Yep.
So I am going to be talking a little bit about Cheryl Ann Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a musician. If you've not heard her music, it's time to look her up online or take a listen. She's going to be featured today on our show.
Yeah.
The thing that I love most about Cheryl Ann is that she brings her daughter Cheyenne in often to sing. I caught a clip of her on YouTube the other day with Cheyenne, who is now probably 17.
Yeah, she's I think she's a senior in high school, so that would be about right.
Yeah. And she was like a little 3-year-old singing a song about 3 dogs. And little Cheyenne is like, roof, 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 roof. It was so sweet.
Cheryl Ann's a wonderful mom, and of course we know she's a great musician.
Fantastic.
Music is every part of her. I've been blessed over these past 5 years to record with her quite a bit, co-write, and of course we perform live.
Yeah, you perform often, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do. With Cheryl Ann and Bob Zigarelli and I, we're developing a great chemistry, and along with Bob, Cheryl Ann has been a real blessing for me. And I think as I've gone through my vocal struggles, and you've been working with me in lessons, and you've said it before, the more I work with those guys, the better I get.
It's true.
Yeah. You've said
They've
that many times.
elevated you.
They do, and also because it's more acoustically based, I'm able to hear better and focus a little more on the notes, and so Cheryl Ann has just been great. I'm so glad we're featuring her music today.
Me too. And the other thing about Cheryl Ann is she's such a giving musician. She's really when she plays, she's very supportive in her playing, but she can turn around on a dime and just command the space.
Oh yeah, she has a great presence.
Yeah, she really
and a lot
does.
of great original music. And today we're gonna play some of that in the podcast.
Absolutely, and the other
and the Borstal Boys.
Yeah,
my guys.
My guys too.
You know, these guys are rockers all the way. Lead singer Mark Ponsonby is one of my absolute favorite singers around here. What a range he has, and he's a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
And Rocky and Vinny and the whole band. But what I love about them is no matter where they are, their performance is original music.
I love that.
They are committed to original music.
Yeah.
And their original music is great.
Yeah.
And these guys are all, I hate to say old pros, but they are old and they are pros. So it's appropriate. So I'm glad that producer Jim has selected the Borstal Boys today for this program.
Yeah, me too.
Good.
So take a listen in our break.
Look up, you dream into the night cloud. Forever after it's a non-stop flight. Rockin' with the rhythm of the steel guitars. It's a long rock road, there ain't no turning back. And now we're passing the sky full of stars. Rockin' with the rhythm of those steel guitars.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're here with us today. We're talking about landscaping and plants and flowers that we choose to create such a beautiful space here at John's house. John, the first topic I want to talk about is landscaping from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
You had a property here that really was very, how would you say?
Well, the home was quasi-abandoned. It was
Okay.
not occupied for quite a while. And the property had some real water issues, so I would say it was mostly swamp and yuck and woods, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it was, I wish it was a blank canvas, but it wasn't blank. It was filled with yuck.
Okay, so when we talk about landscaping from scratch, this would be for anybody that's maybe buying a new property or that has purchased an older property that has not been very well maintained or taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
John, from swampland to extraordinaire, tell me, how did you really get started? What did you have to do?
The first thing that I did is I consulted experts, because I'm not an expert. I call myself a serious gardening hobbyist, right? I'm not a landscape architect. I'm not a geologist or any of that stuff. So the first person that I went to was my friend Deb Monaco.
Okay.
And Deb had taken horticulture classes at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know Deb and her husband Danny, who passed away a few years ago, from Hofstadt's restaurant in Oakmont.
Okay.
That's how I knew Deb, and I knew she was a gardening fanatic, and she had a little more expertise than I did in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like with anything, I think the first step is to not be attached to what you have. So literally, the little bit of foliage that we had here, we completely bulldozed.
Okay.
So every plant that you see, and I realize not everybody's watching us, some people are listening, but if you go to our website, jbgardenparty.com, you'll see these images. Everything that you see behind us, everything except for the woods that are 300 feet away, we planted. I planted or my helpers did.
So the pine trees back here, they were all here.
Yeah, the 100-foot pine trees.
They're
right.
gigantic,
Right.
What about some of these bigger trees that are in your backyard?
I planted all those, every one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first issue I had was water, and that's where Deb came in. So one of the signature plants on this property is a tricolor willow, which is a gorgeous shrub that can get really large because I had the space.
Right.
Large meaning upwards of 12 feet by 12 feet if not bigger.
I know. I have one in my front
I
yard
yelled
that
at you
I'm
about
like
that. I know.
pruning.
You have it in a little tight space, and as long as you stay on top of it, you're cool.
I'm doing that.
But I wanted to create, fill more space.
Right.
And that was Deb's suggestion right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that she said is we have to find a way to suck up some of this water.
Right.
And also I used it as a plant to kind of surround the property and to frame it, if you will.
Yeah.
So that was the first and best big decision that I made.
So that tricolored willow, you had those all on the perimeter of
Yes.
your property.
And up the driveway. And,
Okay.
at first some of my neighbors, there's only 4 of us on this little road, but some of them were concerned that I created kind of this monolithic, unnatural look.
Okay.
And their concern ended the very first spring when these beautiful tricolor willow, which they're called tricolor because the leaves have a white tint and a pink tint and a green tint for almost a month in the spring.
You know what's interesting I've noticed about the tricolored willow, because I have one as well, and like we said, I'm trying to continually prune it to keep it contained in a small space. The older leaves on that bush are variegated, green and white. The new growth is green. So when I'm trying to prune this, one of the little tricks I do is I prune back to where that variegation starts, and then I know that I can keep that kind of contained in the
Yes.
smaller space.
Now, you're working hard to do that.
Yeah.
In a situation like this, we're just letting them go.
Right. Well, you want that.
I
want
wanted
space.
to fill space,
Right.
yeah. But like you said, if you manage it properly and you prune it, you'll get that. It'll get full for you, and you'll maintain that green color,
Right.
which later in the summer, there is no pink.
No, but it's variegated.
Little wee bit of white.
Still,
It is
there's
still
white.
variegated. It's way more subtle.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
that's-
So
yeah.
you have this parameter of tricolored willow. We want to also talk a little bit about what other plants you've chosen here and flowers. I mean, I say plants because we could be talking about bushes, we could be talking about trees, we could be talking about perennials, annuals, and Mishka.
And no, Stella.
Stella.
There goes. Oh no, that's Mishka. She sees the neighbor. But I think a step back was molding the property.
Okay.
I was blessed that a very young excavator came into my life 15 years ago, Steve Slavenik. And together with Steve, we kind of had this vision for how we wanted to shape the property.
Right.
Now, again, there's a lot of land here. So if you were kind of building a new home in a development, that kind of thing wouldn't necessarily apply.
Right.
Because it's really clear and defined. So the molding was so important, and that impacted the plant selections. And I wanted to have year-round color, so you'll see a lot of annuals, a lot of perennials as far as flowers. And you'll see also a lot of perennial grasses.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the perennial grasses.
Okay.
Because there's some ideas that some people find those grasses to be invasive
Oh,
species.
sure. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit
They
about
can be.
that and how you've been able to maintain that, contain it so that it's
Yes.
not going crazy.
Well, I use all maiden grass,
Okay.
which is manageable. So maiden grass is 3 to 4 feet high. Pampas grass could be 5-6 feet, and it goes crazy. I also periodically shed the areas with maiden grass. So I'll remove them. Like this fall, I'm going to probably remove about 20 of them on the other side of the property. So I thin the herd, if you will.
Right.
And I keep them very well defined. But I only use maiden grass.
Okay.
And I think it's much more manageable. And then when I dig it out, like I said, and I split it, I've got plenty of friends and people that come by, and they take them.
So that's what I do. I have some zebra grass, which is
Yes.
I have to stay on top of that.
I love zebra grass, but
I love it too, but
it can be invasive.
It can be very invasive, and that's one of the things that I try to do yearly is sort of cut and divide and thin the herd, so to
Yep.
speak, so that I have a more manageable clump of it as opposed to this big, monstrous, massive zebra grass that
Oh, yeah.
takes over.
You could take one, even a maiden grass, which when you dig it out is about 3 feet in circumference, I'll get 6 or 7 plants out of that.
Right.
You know, there's another key factor on a property like this, and now most properties, even in the city, and those are called deer. So you won't see a single rhododendron, you won't see an azalea, you won't see an arborvitae. There's a few, but I have them surrounded with fences because the deer are just so destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And even really thinking that through and using, quote, deer-resistant plants, I don't believe there is such a thing as a deer-resistant plant. So between the granular product Scram
Mm-hmm.
and I use a lot of the liquid product, it's called Liquid Fence. Yeah, Liquid Fence. It's smelly.
Okay.
It's horribly smelly.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle doesn't like it when I use it before we have friends coming over because they think I'm smelling funny. But, you know, you've got to also think about that
Yeah.
in your plant selection.
It's interesting that you say that, John, because in my property, we have a garden that is actually behind our property line. It's a paper street that we've turned into a garden. And we do have a number of those plants back there, and we have deer. And I haven't had any problems.
You've gotten lucky.
Yeah.
Our neighbor Lee spent close to $1,000 on these gorgeous evergreens to line the street.
Uh-huh.
Within 3 months, they were gone. He was so I don't blame him.
Unbelievable.
And the nursery said these are deer resistant and blah blah blah. And
Apparently
so
not.
they don't mess with the tricolor willow. They don't eat the Russian sage. I mean, you'll see if you look around. They've nibbled down my our coneflower, but they haven't messed with black-eyed Susan. There's no there's no logic behind what a deer will eat.
But I'll bet they'll eat begonias.
No, they don't touch my begonias. don't even get.
I had to bring it up.
I'm gonna be nice today.
I know.
I know. Last time I got angry with your attitude toward begonias, but I'm
working
This
on
is
it.
your gig today.
I'm in
so-
therapy over it.
Oh, you should be.
I am.
Because as I'm sure that Jim has some footage of the begonias and how stunning they are.
Yeah.
We're going to do more next year.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just to.
No, just because they're beautiful.
Okay. I love it. The only reason I bring that up about begonias is because somebody in my neighborhood had a beautiful bed of begonias. Gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And one day I was out walking the dog and the whole thing was mowed down.
From the deer?
Gone.
Yeah.
Completely.
Oh, I believe it. I don't know why they don't touch our begonias.
Isn't that interesting?
I don't know. There's no logic
Yeah.
to what they will or won't do.
Mm-hmm.
Now that Michelle is here, as you know, we're 2 years married now, which has been a great
Congratulations.
gift. And her puppies are here, or our puppies,
I was going to say,
Michigan
they're
Stella.
yours now.
That's right, they're ours. It's part
You've
of our family.
inherited.
I think the dogs have helped reduce the deer thing a little, combined with some additional fencing that we've had, but there's no solution,
No.
you know.
So tell me we talk about plants, flowers, shrubs. What's your favorite perennial here?
My favorite perennial always is Russian sage.
Okay.
Because it is just, I mean, here we are into the fall, and they're still gorgeous.
Yeah.
And they keep the color. Of course, primarily the perennials, I use phlox, upright phlox, Russian sage, coneflower, Stella d'Oro, early bloomer, right, the low one, daylilies, a lot of daylilies. But Russian sage is a real staple. Now, I've recently learned a lot more about the dwarf butterfly bush.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, because a typical butterfly bush could get to be 6 feet tall
I know.
and pretty invasive.
Yeah. I'm going to add something to that
Okay.
after your... Go ahead.
Well, I just discovered, thanks to our friend Vinny, who we did a podcast at Frankstown Gardens, I didn't even know there was a dwarf butterfly bush.
Yeah.
So that's a new addition to our perennial garden. So as the phlox and those other perennials start to die down, which is late July, early August, then the butterfly bush start to come in and support color
Yeah.
in those beds.
Let me interject something. This is an
Okay.
interesting revelation to me. I have a friend who's a master gardener in Delaware. Her name is Amy. And she was telling me about butterfly bushes possibly being added to the list of invasive species in Delaware. That because of their the way that their seeds spread so easily, that they're not there yet, but they're talking about adding it to their
Really?
list. Yeah.
And that means what? That they're bad.
They're bad.
They're bad. Well,
Now, I don't know if that
People from Delaware are weird. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, she's not.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm very
She's
sure.
cool?
She's super cool.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I guess there's a reason, and maybe we could educate ourselves on that and maybe come up with a little factoid in this broadcast as to why that would be the case.
It's because of the seeds. The seeds spread very easily, and they just multiply plant-wise. We have this with perennials anyway. We have to always be watching, do we have too many? Do we need to split them? Do we need to share them with other people? But it's not there yet, but it is a potential to be added to that list.
Let's talk about what I consider to be the most dangerous and invasive plant in the world, bamboo.
Oh, my goodness.
So when I first found this place, and it was a swamp, I was advised by someone, not Deb, because she said tricolor willow. Another person said, oh, you need to put in bamboo. It'll love the water, it'll suck it up, and it'll cover a large area. Well, I didn't know any better. So I put bamboo in, but for whatever reason, I think the Lord intervened. It would not take.
Oh,
it kept
darn.
dying. Right. So I must have tried 3 or 4 different times, and every single time the bamboo would die. What a blessing, right?
What an absolute
Because if
blessing.
I had put bamboo on this property, it wouldn't look like this.
No. And that's really a problem with bamboo. It sends these shoots out and boom, and out and boom. It's really, really invasive.
You just can't control it. But it, like you said, I want to learn more about that butterfly bush thing because I haven't had that experience here. But again, Delaware has a little different climate than we do.
They do have a
They're
slightly
south of
different,
us.
Yep, they have a slightly different climate. But it's interesting. Did you get your butterfly bushes in yet, or are they?
Oh yeah.
Oh, they're in.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're in. I drove up to growers. Vinny connected me with the growers up in Lake Erie, which was near Avalon on the Lake.
Yeah,
Is that what that's called,
I think
right?
that's what it's called.
Oh my goodness, it was like plant porn. I was in my glory. I'm driving this truck, and everywhere you turn, there's growers.
Wow.
Miles of gorgeous. Oh yeah. And I think it must be the soil up there. It obviously is the soil, because it was just phenomenal. Right on Lake Erie.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a dwarf butterfly bush. I like it. It's very, it's never really gotten out of control.
Yeah.
But I cut it way back in the spring, so I think that
maybe also the dwarf isn't quite as invasive as the big one.
It can be. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that answer, but we'll put up a little factoid at this podcast so people can learn about that. And then of course I do a lot of perennial mums for fall color.
So the mums that are here that we
Yes.
see out in the garden, these beautiful yellow mums, if you're just listening to us today, are those perennials or are
They're
they
perennials.
annuals?
They're hardy mums.
Okay, so they came up on their own.
Yes. We'll cut them back probably in late October. My professional landscape maintenance vice president, Michelle Vento, will start cutting away.
Does she have a name tag?
She has a name tag, and she's
Because I think if you're like the vice president, you should have a name tag.
She's the one that, you mentioned maintenance. Without her,
Yeah.
I've been on my own here for so many years, and I've had some help here and there, but Michelle has dedicated herself to watering and pruning and to feeding.
Mowing.
To mowing, yes. She's the tractor chick.
on that tractor all the time.
Yep. And she also, the big thing, minimum twice a week, she fertilizes the flowers with Bloom Booster.
Okay.
Minimum twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week.
Now, is that a spray? Is that granules?
Yeah, we use the Miracle Grow connection thing on the hose, and it's the purple box. It's called Bloom Booster. So it's very different from Miracle Grow, which is a general plant food. Bloom Booster is specifically for perennials and annuals.
Okay.
And the results are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they are clearly amazing because this garden, it's so
it's still got
colorful.
some good color.
We are mid-September here in Pennsylvania, and usually by this time we're short on rain, and everything's dying and withering, and your colors are just
That's all for
spectacular,
I got to
John.
give Michelle all that credit.
Yeah, really spectacular.
I plant it, and then she takes it from there.
Fantastic. So when we talk about care and maintenance, we've talked about fertilizing, cutting things back. What about dividing perennials? Do you do that as well?
I don't as much as I should.
Okay.
First of all, there's some that you really shouldn't divide or split, like Russian sage. You can't do anything
Yeah,
with
they
that.
don't like to be split.
But almost everything else does. Sedum and black-eyed Susie and daylily, I mean, all of them do. And it certainly would be a cost savings if I took the time to do that. And maybe later this fall I'll do that because I think that's when it should be done.
Yeah.
In mid to late October, you know, split them up and spread them around, and that's the beauty of perennials, that you know they can propagate themselves like a daylily will,
Right.
or a defined plant like sedum, autumn sedum. You need to split that, but out of one nice autumn sedum, you can easily get 4 plants,
Sure.
and they'll be just as big the following year.
Yeah. Do you do them typically so late? Because when I split perennials, I tend to do it like now, mid-September, so they have a chance to take. I water the heck out of them in the morning and then again in the evening.
You're probably right. I think you are right. I just don't want to quit on the color. You know, once you
won't
start
quit.
digging them up and
No. You won't quit on the color. And you don't even have to dig them up to split them, I've found. I just take the shovel right in the middle and push
slice down.
Slice down, push the dirt around the original, take the clump that I've split, and then I put it right in the ground and
Yeah,
water.
I think it's a great idea. And you can within a couple of years, you can fill all the perennial beds.
For sure.
I am going to take your advice on that and get started.
Try it.
Thank
it
you.
might
I will.
Be a nice
I will. I
money
think it's a
saver
great
for
point.
you. So let's talk about this. We talked about perennial beds. How about an annual bed? Do you have annual beds here?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Well, like when we were with Vinny at Frankstown Gardens, he loves me.
Oh, I
and
know
loves
he
us.
does.
Yeah, I'm a big annual guy, especially with all the pots and the hanging baskets and the window boxes. But I definitely mix. All of my perennial beds have annuals in the front.
Oh, okay.
And
Is that primarily for color?
yeah,
Yeah.
because you know
okay.
the annuals are going to
Yeah.
sizzle the whole time.
The whole time.
And this year we used a lot of zinnia. Michelle loves zinnia. Along the front edge, we use some creeping petunia, whether it's a super petunia or the wave petunia. But they can get stringy this time of the year.
Yeah, petunias can. But tell me about the zinnia. Do you do it from seed? Or
Oh,
do
no,
you...
no, nothing from seed.
Nothing from seed.
I'll go at the end of May. You know, I follow my own rules. I wait till the last week of May, and I buy plants primarily from Vinny. And we plant normally Memorial Day weekend. We've used zinnia, petunia, a lot of ageratum, the bluish
Right,
ones.
right.
Of course, begonia, but we won't talk about begonia.
No, that's off limits.
We won't go there. We didn't this year, but I normally use a lot of Dusty Miller,
Okay.
the silverish.
Yeah, that's really
things.
pretty.
But the perennial beds are getting bigger, so I'm actually using a little less annuals. Using less.
I'm curious about the zinnias. I'd like to go on and talk a little bit more about that because I started zinnia by seed in probably end of February.
Okay.
And I put them in the ground and they were like nothing. They were wilty and unhappy. And finally, I was probably by June, I thought, I'm not watering you anymore.
Right.
If you make it, you'll make it. If not, tough luck. Well, lo and behold, I come back from vacation in the beginning of September and I've got like
Really?
25 zinnias.
Yeah, I don't know
and
how to
they're
explain it.
beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Vinny mentioned when we were with him that zinnia is one of his top sellers.
Yeah.
And it's so hardy.
But they don't bloom until later,
No,
right?
no, ours were blooming from day one.
Really?
They did not stop. They're still not stopped.
Now,
I mean,
are they
you're
the
gonna
tall
see
ones or the short ones?
Tall ones.
Okay.
Yeah, when we say tall, I don't mean 3 or 4 feet. Is that what you're saying?
So there are tall zinnias and there are short zinnias.
What are you calling short? 15, 16 inches?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Those
these
are
are short
short.
ones.
Because I have the tall ones.
Yeah.
They're probably 3 feet.
Oh, no. These are about 16 to 18
Okay.
inches, yeah.
So I
we
wonder
love
if
'em.
there's a difference with the zinnias if the shorter version blooms through the whole season because the tall ones, they didn't bloom. Honestly, nothing until we came back from the beach.
I really don't know. Maybe that's another factoid that we've got to look up.
That's interesting.
I don't know the answer on that. I'll tell you another real hardy annual that's almost indestructible, and that's vinca. Not vinca the vine, vinca the flower.
Okay.
Pinkish flower, and you could literally not even water them and they survive for some reason.
Well, why don't we take a little break here for
Okay.
some music, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more.
Sometimes it takes a while to just let go of the things you know. Make you feel like you're more than just a little bit crazy. With just a little smile from folks who know when you lost your glow, can pick you up just enough to lift you up, and then maybe you remember what you are craving. You remember who you are. You remember why you're amazing. You remember when you are far from the place where your grace can be spreading like wildfire. All you need is some love and some gratitude. Sometimes you need some time.
Wasn't that fantastic music?
Absolutely.
I just love
There's so
it.
much talent in Pittsburgh. Well, you know that because you
I
work with.
do.
I'm always surprised by some. Well, I'll mention names. Oh yeah, that's my student. That's my student. That's or was my
Or
student.
was my student. Like
Yeah.
we had that little discussion
We were just talking
yesterday.
about Joe West.
Yeah.
Joe down in Nashville writing hit records and
Yeah.
with Dave Pahanish, and you know everybody.
So do you.
Yeah.
We're the dream team.
Oh yeah.
So, John, I want to ask you a little bit about maintenance.
Okay.
What's your maintenance schedule?
Well, let's start with two big things: watering and weeding.
Okay.
All right. Both are critical, and you just can't slack off.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, with hanging baskets and potted plants and window boxes, that's daily watering in the hot summer.
For sure.
Absolutely. Especially, you cannot overwater a hanging basket.
Right.
And so that's critical. And again, I give Michelle so much credit because,
She's doing the work,
oh,
right?
sure. I mean, I do have a sprinkler system here which covers big areas, but you have to water by hand.
Yeah.
And then weeding, you let that get out of control, you're just going to have a mess on your hands.
Well, let me
So
bring,
every Sunday we weed.
you weed every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Let me bring this up to you. So I was driving to your house today, and McTie's, which is a local
Route
nursery
8?
here, had mulch for sale.
Okay.
4 bags for $10. And I was thinking, I wonder if I could mulch after I clean up my beds for the fall.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I don't have to do it in the spring.
Correct. Yeah, you don't want to do fall and spring.
Right.
Let's talk about mulch for a second.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, so I use mulch in every bed, around plants, around perennials. Where I put annuals, I use mushroom manure.
Okay.
Now, I like to mulch in the spring because I use black dyed mulch.
Right.
Which
So do I.
might be a little bit of a sin to use black dyed mulch.
Yeah, but it looks so clean.
It
and-
does.
Yeah, I agree.
So the mulch that you see around here, it was put in March, April, and May, right? But you can certainly get your beds ready this time of the year, being the fall,
Right.
mulch nice and heavy, and you do not have to do it in the spring. And it will help control the weeds, and it will keep the moisture in, of course.
Nice.
And then for the annual beds, I use mushroom manure, and because that can get pretty hot, if you will, I like to put the mushroom manure in really early, like March.
Okay.
So it kind of, the strength of it dies down for when I move into late May to plant the flowers. And when we plant, I have my own little concoction of lime pellets. I use mill organite fertilizer, and I use preen,
Oh, yeah.
which is the
weed
granular weed control. I get a bucket, and I do 1/3 parts of each, lime pellets, mill organite, and preen, and I mix it up and create my own little
Cocktail.
cocktail, and I throw that right in with all the, whether it's mushroom manure or mulch, and then plant from there.
That's very
So that helps
interesting.
keep the weeds under control a little bit.
And tell me, when you're preparing your beds in the fall, what do you do? Do you typically cut things back? Do you let things stay through the winter? You know, there are pros and cons for both. You
There
know,
are.
you cut it back now, then you've got a nice clean bed to start in the spring. If you let it go, then you're creating an environment for birds, for seeds and squirrels and little.
I cut everything back.
Okay, so
Well, I should say Michelle cuts everything back.
yeah.
Yes,
Let's be clear about
I don't
that.
want to take the credit that I don't deserve. No, we cut everything back to the ground, all the perennials,
Okay, I have a
and we
tip.
pull out the annuals, of course.
Let me give you a tip about the
Okay.
perennials and the cutting down. So this is also from my master gardener friend, Amy. I'm going to
She
give
would
you
know.
a plug, Amy, right here. So she has suggested that we don't cut things down to the ground, that we leave about 4 or 5 inches, and that stalk that stays up provides an environment for insects to burrow in and have a protected home through the winter.
Okay.
So maybe we could try not going all the way to the ground, but leaving 4
Well,
or 5 inch
not
stalk.
even knowing that, and
Yeah.
thank you, Amy, because she's an expert, that is about what we do. We go to about
Okay,
4 or 5, 6
good.
inches.
Yeah.
So when I say to the ground, I have to apologize. It's not like we shave it with a lawnmower.
Right.
We do leave about 4 or 5 inches, but we had it was just,
That was just
'cause
what
that's
you
what we
did.
do.
Right.
but this is what I mean when the very first thing I said, when you asked me about this creation we have here, and I said consult experts,
Right.
right? Because they can give you that kind of knowledge
Right.
that us serious hobbyists don't have.
That's true.
So we need to interview Amy. We need to either get Amy here or we need to go there or meet her halfway.
I'm sure she
That-
would love it.
we
Let me
need
tell
to.
you what, she knows so much. It just, she can rattle off names and this is what you do
Right.
for this. And I love that. I love learning from her and Vinny and,
Yeah.
the different people that we've had on our podcast.
And they're educated. They've got the education.
Yeah.
They do it for a living. Even in music, we both know so many musicians.
Right.
I always tell people I'm a serious hobbyist in my music, right? But I'm not a professional musician, even though occasionally we get paid. Professional musicians are grinding every day. They live it every day.
Yeah.
They're surrounded 24/7
Right.
by music, and that's their entire focus. That's what I call musical experts. Just like in gardening, I've got, we have a nice place here. It looks great, and we get a lot of compliments. But we're not gardening professionals. People like Amy are, or
Yeah.
Vinny, or landscape contractors like my friend Cullen Green. They're grinding away every day in
Right.
this world.
Right. And there's, I think that's the beauty about having friends in lots of different circles is that we really can learn and
Oh, my.
share information. And to me, it's always about broadening. What can I learn from
Absolutely.
this? So,
Yep. So there's a lot, we're very proud of this. I found this place about 15 years ago, and there was nobody living here, and the house was filled with snakes.
ooh, I don't like snakes,
There
but
was
they're
no
good in the
electricity.
garden.
No, I don't like snakes either. And the property was mostly a swamp, and through so many blessings and good people and a lot of vision and a lot of debt. I mean, we can't be afraid of debt. See,
Yeah.
I call this PNC Park because PNC Bank owns it, right? That's my job.
But if you split your perennials, then you don't
then,
have to
then
worry
I won't
about
have
it.
to borrow as much money for flowers. So, and then of course along comes Michelle, and it's just taken it to a whole new level
Yeah.
with all the work that she does. So, thanks for visiting today.
It's been so wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me here.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing all this information with our wonderful friends.
thank you, Marcello. Thank you, Jim.
Yep, great
For this
job, you
episode.
guys. You're the best. Couldn't do it without you.
Signing off. See you next time.
Click, subscribe. Thank you for joining us today. Please check out our website at jbgardenparty.com. We're also on a YouTube channel. Click subscribe and ding the bell for notifications.
It's good to ding the bell. Plus, we are on all of the podcast platforms for audio of these shows. Thank you.
Thank you.